All right, guys, so I'm at my 5-home new construction project right here behind me. As you can see, we have the form set and the plumbers are working on the undergrounds over there. So the first phase of new construction is the site prep. And for this lot, since I'm building 5 homes, the first thing I did was do dirt work to bring the level of the ground up to where the street level was. Next, I had the concrete contractor set the forms for the 5 houses. So the purpose of these wood forms is to put the boundaries of where the foundation is going to be poured for the concrete. And after you do that, you have to call the surveyors back out and do a form survey where they double check that the forms are in the correct spots inside the boundaries of the lot, so you're not encroaching on another lot, and that the foundation will be in the right spot. Because otherwise, it'll be very hard to make changes once the foundation is poured. But right now, before they do that, we're having the undergrounds ran for the electrical, water, sewer, and gas. So my electrician is going to charge me $3,000 for all the electrical undergrounds being ran to every house. And there's 5 houses, so $600 per house. So my plumbers over there are packing up for the day. It's a Sunday and they still worked. But what they did today was they put in all the undergrounds for the sewer lines for the 2 houses right here. So this house and this house, they have an identical floor plan. And they finished all the sewer lines, as you can see right here. All finished up. So let me give you a brief rundown of how it's going to look like. Basically, there's a powder room right here on the first floor. That's the toilet and that's the sink. That's the kitchen sink drain. And then right here in front of me, this is the drain actually for the primary bathroom on the 2nd floor. It's gonna come down and drain here and everything's gonna connect to this one long sewer line that's gonna run all the way to the city sewer tap on the other side of the road over there. Also, the plumbers have everything tied up and they're gonna fill it with water for inspection to see if it holds water and pass inspection. This is to make sure that there's no leaks before you pour the concrete foundation. All right, so I'm checking in on the project and today they're working on the foundation for 3 of the houses. The other 2 have already been finished. As you can see behind me, they're working on it right now. Let's take a look. So after the concrete is poured, that will end phase 1. Phase 1 was dirt work, forms, undergrounds for electrical, meter rack for electrical, undergrounds for plumbing, water tap and sewer taps for plumbing, and then the actual concrete foundation itself. So the concrete foundation, which includes the dirt work, the forms, and the foundation itself, costs $15,000 per house for these 2 larger footprints, and then $10,000 per house for the 3 smaller footprints, even though they're a bigger square foot house. So that's $60,000 for the foundation. And then water taps for each home cost me $2,000 or $10,000 total. And then the sewer taps is what the plumber is working on right now. It's gonna be 3 sewer taps for the 5 houses, and that's gonna cost me $20,000. The reason it's so expensive is because the existing city sewer line is actually on the other side of the street and not on my side of the street, so I had to cut the street and dig under to connect to the sewer lines, and that costs a lot more. Now for electrical, you see this meter rack behind me? I actually have 2 separate meter racks. There's 2 meters on this meter rack to serve these 2 houses right here, and then over there in the corner, I have another meter rack for 3 meters for the other 3 houses. Now my electrician only charged me $1,500 for the labor, so $750 each meter rack. But the material cost went up because there's a new requirement from the electricity company that the meter rack has to be made out of metal instead of wood now. Because my last project, I did the meter rack out of wood and it was a lot cheaper. So the cost for the materials for the meter racks was $3,000 for both. So a grand total of $4,500 for both meter racks. And then the undergrounds to the house itself, that ran $3,000 total labor and material. So $600 per house is what my electrician charged me. So the grand total is $13,500 for the meter racks, tap boxes, and the electrical undergrounds to all 5 houses. And as you can see right here, those green tags mean that the city has passed the sewer inspection, make sure the sewer line's all correct, and they had just passed those 3 over there earlier today, and that's why now they're doing the foundation. And once that's done, we can do the concrete pouring. Now, before we actually pour the concrete, there's gonna be 2 pre-pour inspections. First, the structural engineer that designed the plans will come out to approve it. And then second, the city of Houston will send their own inspector out to look at it as well. So this is what it looks like before you pour the foundation. You have all the concrete rebar put in, and all that's put in place and inspected before you pour the concrete, because once you pour the concrete, you can't see if it was done correctly. And then once they're ready to pour the concrete, the structural engineer will actually come back out here as well, and he will watch them pour the concrete to make sure everything is being done correctly. So there's 2 inspections, a pre-pour inspection by the structural engineer and by the city of Houston, and then inspection during the pour where the structural engineer monitors the whole process and makes sure everything is done correctly. So let's talk about the time frame it takes for the whole phase 1 of this project. So they started doing the dirt work on January 4th, and they are now finishing and getting ready to pour on February 2nd, so about 1 month. However, 2 of those weeks were lost due to rain delays. So 1 week there was a giant freeze in Houston and everything was frozen and no one could work. And then the following week, there was heavy rainstorms the whole week and you couldn't do anything with the wet ground. So really, Phase 1 should only take you about 2 weeks, and if it's taking you longer than that, then your guys aren't working as hard as they should. Keep in mind, time is money in new construction and real estate in general, so you want Phase 1 to be finished within 2 to 3 weeks at most. This project took me 4 weeks because I had about a week and a half to 2 weeks of delay from weather-related incidents that we can't control. However, keep in mind that my guys, like my plumbers and my foundation guys, they work weekends as well. They work Saturdays and Sundays, and that really helps speed up the project. And once the concrete is poured, I'll probably call for my first draw from a construction loan from the bank, so they'll send out inspectors to make sure everything was done, and then I'll request all the money from Phase 1, which will be about $135,000. All right, guys, so I'm back at the job site today, and today we're pouring concrete, as you can see behind me, on the foundation of all 5 houses, and there's actually a lot of issues leading up to it. Because yesterday we had the inspection with the city and that went well, but the structural engineer came and there were some issues missing with the rebar and how they were set. So they were working late last night to fix all that and early this morning so we could start pouring concrete. And also my foundation guy and the structural engineer got into it. Pretty heated argument, but I understand both sides of it. But at the end of the day, I want this foundation done right. So we're doing that right now, making the changes and making the fixes. But hopefully everything will be done today and then we can start framing next week. And we've poured 2 of the foundations right now and they're finishing them up. You see they're smoothing them out and using the vibrator to have everything all spread out evenly. And then we're just waiting on the rest of the trucks to come to pour the other 3 foundations over there. Let me show you around right now. So as you can see, this is the first house and they've smoothed it out with a vibrator and the hand trowels. And now they're working on the second house right here. And then we have the truck right here that's loading concrete. We're waiting for the new concrete trucks. And then we're gonna pour these last 3 houses right here. And these metal screws you see right here, they're being set in place for the framers. So that's where they connect their frame, the wood frame, to the concrete foundation. But we're having them set in place right now to get ready for the framing for next week. So now that Phase 1 is complete, let's do a recap and break down all the costs. I consider Phase 1 of new construction from starting the dirt work and breaking ground all the way until the foundation is poured. So I'm gonna go in order of the timeline of the events so you can understand the process of the new construction as well. First, I had my electrician install a temporary power pole or a T-pole, and that cost $500. The purpose of a T-pole is to have a power source on the job site for tools, etc. Next, I ordered a porta potty. That cost $309 for the initial delivery and setup, and then every month, the cost is $259. I then had to go to the city of Houston and pay for permits for the water taps, which is $486 per house, or a total of $2,430. I also had to pay for a sidewalks and driveway permit, and that was $705. The surveyor then charged me $350 per form survey for the 5 houses, and that's a total of $1,750. For the actual water taps installation, there's 1 water tap per house, and each water tap costs $2,000, so a grand total of $10,000 for all the water taps. For the sewer taps, the plumber charged me $20,000. Then the plumbing undergrounds for each house, which is mainly just the drain lines, cost $3,000 per house or $15,000 total. The electrical undergrounds were $600 per house or $3,000 total. The permits for the electrical was $2,600, and then the 2 meter racks and tap boxes were combined $9,850. And now the last part is the foundation. Now the foundation actually went way over the original bid. So my original bid was $60,000 for all 5 houses, turnkey, labor, and material. However, after the pour, I went to pay for the material and it was a lot more than I expected. And he said that his quote was actually just for 15 trucks of concrete for the material, and I ended up using 26 trucks of concrete. However, nowhere in that bid did it specify that the material was for only 15 trucks of concrete. He didn't bring that up until after the fact and after the concrete was poured. By the time the concrete was ready to pour, I had already paid the contractor $40,000, so I was expecting $20,000 remaining to finish the job. However, when I went to go pay the concrete company for the material, I was shocked to see a bill over $33,000. Like I said, using only 15 trucks of material was never mentioned in the bid, and I couldn't really understand how he could underbid the material cost so much, given that the plans showed the exact square footage of the foundations of each home. He told me that since the structural engineer required a different type of concrete, a 5 slag, which is more watery, and that the engineer required him to use the vibrator to smooth out the surface and compact it, that it used more material and more concrete than he had originally bid. I guess that kind of makes some sense, but if you're a concrete pro, let me know if that's true or not, because I still feel like the square footage is still the same square footage, so it shouldn't really matter on the slag or how watery the concrete is, and if you're using a vibrator to smooth it out. I personally think he just underbid the project because after the overcharges and the change orders, it still came out to around where the other bids I was getting was. So I'm not too upset about it. I'm not throwing a big fit about it because I think he just underbid the project and I ended up paying what the actual cost should have been. So I definitely didn't feel scammed or used, but I wasn't happy to see an overage of almost 33% off the original bid. Also, there were some change orders in there, like installing the J-hook screws for the framer, as he had requested those and that wasn't included in the original bid, and some extra rebar and foundation stuff he had to do to meet the structural engineer's requirements. All in all, my total came out to $83,208 instead of the $60,000 original bid. So that's an overage of almost 40% or $23,000. But at the end of the day, the job was done right and it was done in a timely manner, and I can continue forward with the construction process, and I think I'll still be good on my budget. And at the end of the day, I learned a lot about how to read structural concrete plans and what the structural engineer will require, and I now have a better idea of how much concrete should be used for each house foundation. That way, going forward, I can give more detailed scope of works to contractors to bid so that we're all on the same page, by including the exact amount of square yards for the foundation of concrete material, to add in J-hooks for the framers, and to add in structural inspections so that they know what they're getting into and I can get detailed, accurate bids. So it was all a learning process and I learned a lot, and it'll just help me going forward get more accurate bids now that I know a lot more about foundation and what is required for new construction. Also, for all the structural engineer inspections and re-inspections, I haven't got the invoice yet from the company, but I expect it to be about $1,500 to $2,000 for all the times the engineer had to come out and inspect the concrete. So in total, phase 1 of this project came out to $151,352. And here's a quick recap of all the costs in order. First, there's the T-pole for $500, then the porta potty was $309, the water tap permits were $2,430, the sidewalk and driveway permit was $705, the form surveys was $1,750, the water taps were $10,000, the sewer taps were $20,000, the plumbing undergrounds were $15,000, the electrical undergrounds were $3,000, the electrical meter rack and tap boxes was $9,850, the electrical permits were $2,600, and the concrete foundation was $83,208, and the structural engineer inspections was about $2,000. So that wraps up the first phase of new construction. I hope this video and breakdown helped you understand the process better. If you're looking to do new construction yourself, I'll continue making videos on each segment and each phase of this project as I go along, and then at the end I'll make a giant video of the whole project in one video. If you learned anything and got any value out of this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to see when the phase 2 video of this project comes out.